All right, let's move on to solving equations with like terms in parentheses. This is a continuation of 8.EE.7. So let's go ahead and let's start solving. All right, I'm going to show you two different ways to solve an equation like this. The first is we can use the distributive property. So what we can do is I'm going to rewrite this. So 5 times 3x minus 8 is equal to 35. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to distribute that 5 to each of the pieces on the inside, right? So think of this as a box. Inside of this box I have this, and I have 5 of the boxes. So when I dump it all out, I'm going to get 3x 5 times, which gives me 15x, and I'm going to get negative 8 5 times, which gives me negative 40, and that's going to equal 35. From here, I follow the steps that we learned in the last section. Okay, I'm going to add 40 to both sides because I'm trying to isolate x, right? I'm trying to get x by itself. Okay. I'm going to be left with 15x on this side, and then if I do 35 plus 40, I'm going to get 75. From here, I divide by 15, and I get x is equal to 5. Okay, let's plug it back in. So we're going to do 5 times 3 times 5. I will put that in parentheses too. Minus 8 is equal to 35. So let's see, 3 times 5 is 15, so I get 5. 15 minus 8 is equal to 35. 15 minus 8 is 7. So I get 5 times 7. Does that equal 35? And yes, it does. 35 is equal to 35. So that works. Okay. So that's one option. Let's try another option here. Okay, now the other thing is, let's think about this. If I was checking my answer, and if I knew what x was, I would multiply by 3, subtract 8, and then take that answer, multiply it by 5, and get to 35, right? So there's actually quite a few steps in this problem. So the first thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to say, okay, this is 5. This thing over here is I'm multiplying it. So if 35 is a multiple of 5, right? Or if I can divide 35 by 5 nice and easily, let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this whole side by 5 and divide this side by 5. So what that tells me is that 3x minus 8 is equal to 7. So again, what I'm saying is what number has to go inside this parenthesis, right? Something, number in here, has to be times 5, 35. So that means inside of here has to be 7. And that's what this is saying, okay? And then from here, now I have the same two-step equation from before. I would add 8 to both sides, okay? And I would be left with 3x is equal to 15. And I would divide by 3 on both sides, and I would get x is equal to 5. Okay, and that we use the same solution as we had on the previous slide, and we know that it works. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's try another one. I've got negative 2 times this thing on the inside, 6 plus x, which is equal to negative 18. So it's really up to you. I'll do both ways. The first way I'm going to do is negative 2 times 6 plus x is equal to negative 18. So the first thing I'm going to do is I like to try to divide first. I know that this is a multiplication problem. This is a multiplication. This thing is being multiplied with this. So I'm going to divide by negative 2. Okay. If I knew what x was, I would add 6, then multiply by negative 2, and it would get me here. So I'm going to just divide by negative 2 first. Okay. So I get this cancels with that, and I get 6 plus x is equal to negative 18. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. I'm going to get x is equal to negative 24. Okay, and if I plug in 6 plus negative 24, 6 plus negative 24 is oops, wait, I did something wrong here. Negative 2. Oh, I didn't actually divide by 2. Okay. See, this is why we check our answer. Even I will make mistakes sometimes. All right, so we get 6x. I did, this will be 9, right? And we're going to subtract 6. So 9 minus 6 is 3. Okay, this seems, let's see if this works better. So 3 plus 6 is 9. 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. So that works. Okay. Now the other option is we use the distributive property. So we do negative 2 times 6 plus x is equal to negative 18. Okay, and I'm going to distribute this to both. So I get negative 2 times 6 is negative 12, plus negative 2 times x is negative 2x is equal to negative 18. Now I'm going to add 12 to both sides because I want to get x by itself, and I'm going to get negative 2x. Don't forget that negative, it's still in there. Negative 18 and positive 12 is negative 6. Divide by negative 2 on both sides, and I get x is equal to 3, which is the same answer. Okay. Why don't you go ahead and you try this one? Go. Okay, so I'm going to look here and I'm going to say, all right, normally I'm going to multiply by 8. Actually, it's going to be a negative 8, right? Maybe, in fact, I would do plus negative 8, but I don't want to touch this thing yet because let's just rewrite it right away. 6 minus 8x equals 35. Okay, and I can say, okay, with some subtracting a negative or subtracting 8x, that's multiplying negative 8 times x. Okay, so I'm going to multiply, then I'm going to add, and then I'm going to multiply again by this. Okay, so maybe I'm going to divide by negative 4. Although, in this problem, if I divide by negative 4 here, it's not going to be very nice. Okay, if negative 4, if I take 35 and divide it by negative 4, I'm going to end up with a fraction. And I don't want to deal with a fraction right now. So I'm going to do the distributive property. I'm going to take this negative 4, I'm going to multiply it with both sides. So negative 4 times 6 is negative 24. Plus negative 4 times negative 8 is going to be 32x is equal to 35. Okay, then I'm going to add 24 to both sides. Okay, and this is, again, this, if you just know the steps, you just follow the same steps. I'm just trying to get rid of this piece so that I can get x, right, and 32x, and then I can divide from there. So I'm going to get 32x is equal to, well, 35 plus 24 is going to be 59. Now I'm going to divide by 32, and I'm going to divide by 32, and I get x is equal to, well, this is a fraction. I can't really simplify it, so I'm just going to leave it. I can just leave it as a fraction, 59 over 32. Okay, and sometimes it's going to work like that. Sometimes you're not going to get a nice whole number to have in the problem. Okay, let's try this one. Now this one has variables all over the place, so go ahead and you try this one real quick. Go. Alright, so this would be 6x minus 3 times 3x minus 9 is equal to 33. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do here is I can't really divide because I have this extra piece here, okay? So, and I have x's in a couple different places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to open this up, right? Use my distributive property to get rid of this, and then I'm going to put my x's together because when I've got x's in more than one place, it's going to make it really difficult. So let's do this. We'll do 6x, and I'm going to make this plus a negative, and we'll do this plus a negative. Okay, so make it a little bit easier. So negative 3 times positive 3x is going to give me, right? So I'm going to do the distributive property. Negative 3 times positive 3x is going to be negative 9x, and then negative 3 times negative 9 is plus 27, so that's going to be equal to 33. Let's combine 6x and negative 9x, gives me negative 3x plus 27 is equal to 33. Alright, now I'm going to subtract 27 from both sides, and I'm left with negative 3x is equal to positive 6. Now I'll divide by negative 3. And I get x is equal to negative 2. And let's plug this in. 6 times negative 2 minus 3 times 3 times negative 2 minus 9 is equal to 33. Okay, so 6 times negative 2 is negative 12 minus, and let's do the inside, oops, 3. Let's do the inside. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6 minus 9. Okay, negative 12 minus 3 times negative 6 minus 9 is going to be negative 15. Okay, does this equal 33? And this would be a good, if you wanted to use a calculator, I wouldn't fault you for that. Okay, so then I'm going to make this, let's see, negative 12 plus negative 3. So negative 12 plus 3 times 15 is 45, and negative times a negative is positive, so negative 12 plus 45. And if I add those together, I do get 33. Okay, this is about as difficult of a problem as you will see. Okay, I'm not going to give you one that's really more difficult than that. So if you can follow along on this one, you are in fantastic shape. If not, then try to figure out which part here did you not follow, which part was a little bit more difficult, or which part did you confuse you, and bring it to class, and we'll try to walk through and get you to a place that is comfortable for you. Okay, see you tomorrow.